Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the David Mathas podcast. I'm your host, David Mathas, and I have a good friend here with me today, Sarah Bishop. I still slip up sometimes and say Sarah Ford. But Sarah is a good friend of mine. She went through my master's program with me at USF. She is an online coach as well. Sarah, thank you for being on episode 4 of the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Yeah, I just realized too, my Zoom name still says Sarah Ford too. So yeah, recently got married. So now my middle name is Ford and my last name is Bishop. But I'm also, like David said, an online coach, have my master's in exercise science from the University of South Florida. Like David, also have a background with eating disorders. So that's largely, why I got into this field, is because I wanted to help people and help people understand, nutrition and training, and not go down the rabbit hole that I did of the misinformation that contributed to some of, my behaviors. But yeah, also compete in bodybuilding. Sounds weird to say, but bikini division. So tiny, but still mighty, right?
But mighty.
So, yeah, excited to be here.
And those of you guys that are watching this on YouTube, you probably have noticed I look about 10 years younger now because I shaved. I will have the beard back again soon. So, hey, I just saw you a few hours ago at the gym. How'd your workout go today?
It was good. Leg day.
Always a good one.
Yeah. So I'm on a 2-on-1-off split right now, which it really, at first, I was like, oh, but I love the gym, but it's been really good for my recovery. So
guys, if you guys don't know, Sarah has a podcast also. And we did an episode, it was a couple months ago now, I think, about training. And we talked a lot about training splits and things like that. Highly suggest you guys go check it out. What's the name of the podcast?
It's Unfiltered Fitness Radio. It's on Spotify and iTunes. Or Apple Podcast. But yeah, and that's something we talked about is, it's not about going to the gym 6 days a week or 7 days a week. It's about putting the intensity and the effort into those training sessions. And by training 2-on-1-off, I'm able to really fully recover and be able to do that.
Yeah. And if you guys haven't been following Sarah, follow her on Instagram. And if you look at her progression, you're what, a year and a half from your last show now? Has it been that long?
It'll be 2 years in June. In June of this year, to be a full 2 years.
So she has taken almost 2 years off. Well, she has taken 2 years off. If you guys would go and look at her transformation from that show to where she's been able to build now, it's just tremendous. And it's a huge benefit for women out there to follow you, to see your progress, to understand that competing every single year is not the way to go about it. That's not how you stay healthy. That's definitely not how you make change. And especially if you're a natural, right? You need to have that time and build that foundation. You're 25, 24?
Yeah, I just turned 25. So
25. So you're still, you're right in the prime of things right now. You still have all this awesome growth potential. And this women, I brought her on this podcast to talk about a certain topic, which we'll get into in a minute. But I think this is kind of a really good segue into that, is that when you compete so frequently, all right, I know you love it. I know you love training. I know you want to be out there on stage. You don't like to go through the building process, but it's necessary. It's called bodybuilding, right?
Yeah.
Body tearing down or body maintaining. You have to put up with those uncomfortable times, not only to see the progress in your physique, which is the goal, right? But for your health. And part of the reason I brought Sarah on here today is because we wanted to talk about, some of the issues with being low body fat for a long time, whether it's coming off of an eating disorder or just competing a lot, and how that can mess with a woman's menstrual cycle, and how losing that is some women will be like, oh, it's great. I don't get this at all while I'm competing all that. That's not a healthy approach. Okay. So you've had your own history with this for quite some time now. And I want to say about 6 months ago or so, you started kind of taking a more proactive approach. Maybe it was a little bit longer than that. I don't know, but I'll let you get into it.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just kind of get into it. But, like David was saying, like when you diet, when you're that lean, all, hormones downregulate, right? Just like your metabolism downregulates. It's partly because, your thyroid hormone, your sex hormones downregulate, so libido goes down, all that stuff. Women lose your cycle. So for me, I mean, just totally backtracking, like we said, history of the anorexia. So, I had like my first period when I was 13 years old, and then I developed anorexia at 14, right? So most girls, they only get one period or two, and then maybe they'll get another one, a couple months later. It's usually irregular the first couple of years. But for me, started dieting, started getting leaner than I already was. And I was already lean to start off with at 14 years old. So got in what we call amenorrhea is the correct term for it, secondary amenorrhea or hypothalamic amenorrhea. So anyway, then, eating disorders, super lean, not going to get your cycle. Then for me, I personally went on the birth control pill when I was 17 before I got my period back. And I think what a lot of women don't even realize, which it's crazy that we don't realize this because it's something we're taking and putting in our bodies, but it's what the doctors tell us, is that this pill is going to regulate your cycle. Now, I went on the pill to not get pregnant, but some women are placed on the pill to get their period back. And it's not your actual, like the period you learned about in middle school, right? It's a withdrawal bleed. It's from those hormones. And that's why you bleed when you're on the pill. It's not actual period. And then, fast forward, again, competed, in 2019. And then last year I decided 2020 that I wanted to get off the birth control pill. I didn't want to be on it anymore. I had been on it for 7 years at that point. So I started, and I knew, again, we'll get into this, but I knew that because of my history, because of the length of time that I was on the pill, I was going to need to kind of support my body to get a cycle back and just get healthy after taking that birth control. So yeah, I started doing the proper kind of prep work to get off of it. And then I stopped taking it in September 2020. And now it's like 6 months later. Now it's April 2021.
Yeah, it's almost geez.
Yeah. And I don't have a period, like a natural period, because think about it, like that connection, it's called the HPA axis, HPO axis. So a hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and the I can never say that word. Hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis is shut down. So that communication between my brain and ovaries, reproductive system, and men have the same thing. It's the reproductive, the testosterone.
Absolutely.
And
I had my own issues with anorexia. Like I still never really got up to a good level and everything after years and years of recovery. So
because what happens is, what happens is, that hypothalamic, pituitary axis, your body just knows that you're in a time of stress, right? You're in a famine, it doesn't know that you're purposefully doing that, whether it's eating disorder or competing, whatever the mindset is behind it, your body doesn't care. It's like, okay, well, we don't have enough energy coming in. Like we're not making babies right now. Right. It doesn't know that modern day society, that's not necessarily our goal all the time. Right. So we're not like whatever bunnies here. I got Bear here. Hi.
What's up, Bear? Bear's her giant German Shepherd, right?
We're 85 pounds now. Yeah.
I mean, he's getting up there with Bailey. Our girl, she's like right at 100.
But yeah, and our body, we're not animals, right? So, anyway, anything down regulates, including those hormones. And this is where, this is kind of interesting. So like you were saying with your, testosterone and me, like we're at healthy body weights now, like, body fat on us. We eat a lot, like we're good. Right. But just because we're doing all that doesn't mean that my period's just going to come back. Right. Or, it's all these years of damage or even just being turned off that needs
I think that's really important because, you know, I see this a lot with clients when we start like reverse dieting them, right? They're like, oh, well, can I just get my calories up real quick and then we can go back into a fat loss phase? It's like, no, the body is amazing and it can heal itself in a lot of ways, but it needs time. And it's important to go through that time. It's not just about getting to a certain calorie range or body fat percentage. You need the time. And that's what I find is really difficult for most people, no matter what phase you're in, recovery phase with hormones, recovery phase from, you know, nutrition or whatever it is, it's that time. So when you were going through that, when you started transitioning and working towards getting healthier and everything, what were you feeling like before and what kind of changes did you feel afterwards? Like once you kind of started along in this protocol and stuff.
Yeah. So back in April, actually like exactly a year ago, like April of last year, I reached out to Victoria Felkar, who's someone I had heard on different podcasts, someone that was recommended by, you know, different friends, mutual friends, but she's not currently taking clients. So I don't want to like, I don't think she is at least.
Don't bombard her inbox.
So I don't want to like shout it out too much, but and this is what's so important too, is it's again, like we were talking about, this is about the years of things that you've done to your body and looking at your whole health timeline. So I filled out a lot of intake forms for her and gave her basically my health timeline from the time I was born and all the blood work I had done from 2010 until 2020. So 10 years of blood work that she was looking at.
And guys, Sarah's very diligent about blood work. Like she, every 3 months or so, what is it, something like that? Like once a quarter or something. You're done. Something both her and I really, really believe in is getting blood work done. You can't know how to fix an issue if you don't know what the issue is, right? Exactly. And we see this a lot with people taking like a bunch of vitamins and everything. They're like, you might not need it. Like, go get blood work. See what you're deficient in, right?
I was just telling a client that, like, I mean, for some people, like I'll recommend a multivitamin because it's a good like low dose thing, you know, especially when you're dieting. And we're not at risk of like ODing on anything with a multivitamin. But if we're going to supplement something like targeted, it could be harmful, right? Like if we're going to give you, say, iron and maybe your iron's high, right? You know, so
exactly.
So that's just an example.
And you can kind of look sometimes at what people, what their diets look like do they eat the same things every day? And you can kind of see, all right, you're not getting a whole lot of this or that in there, maybe do that. But anyways, back to your board.
So, and what's been great for me over this past year is, and working with Victoria, is I've learned so much, like for myself, which, you know, and that's the thing too, is I'm not applying this necessarily in depth to clients just yet, but in the future, you know, as I continue learning, you know, I would like to on that level at least. But you know, through analyzing my blood work, she was able to kind of pinpoint some things. And this was while I was on the birth control pill, right?
Okay.
So she was able to pinpoint things like two of my biggest things were my thyroid levels were low. And I knew they were low post competition. So they were, and this was, I guess this would have been 8 months post show. They were still low, suboptimal, kind of not where they should be. And my gut health, you know, and obviously like my symptoms, you know, I'll just be, I mean, back and forth, diarrhea, constipation, more so on the diarrhea side. Like she was able to look at that and then look at my blood work and confirm that my stomach acid was low. So
that was causing diarrhea just from that, even like if you were having enough fiber and everything too, it was still causing.
Yeah, because my stomach acid was low, and then stress has a huge thing to do with it too. And then, you know, people that have eating disorders, we just put our bodies through a lot. So we just need extra support, especially digestion wise, like, you know, anorexia, you're restricting for so long, you know, back and forth, you know, restricting, kind of recovery, restricting, whatever the case is, like that's confusing to your body. So
your body's always trying to recover. Like you did so much damage to it that I like, that's what I've always felt, is that like my body's always going to be a few steps behind because of what I put it through for so long. And it's like always trying to play catch up.
Yeah. So that's exactly kind of what we're like my thought process toward it too. So, but that said, like my stomach acid, was low stomach acid, which is sometimes a side effect of being on the birth control pill. Okay. In addition to that history of anorexia plus competing, right? But along with that, digestion or not having enough stomach acid, I was not absorbing I eat a really clean diet, but I was not fully absorbing all of those nutrients. And your thyroid needs all those nutrients to be fully functioning.
Absolutely.
So, we're kind of the big thing here, with getting your period back or whatever, thyroid is getting to the root cause. And for a lot of people, gut health is a root cause. Stress.
So what kind of changes, did she make any changes with your dietary intake?
So diet, like as far as like food choices or amounts, no. Okay. Big things we worked on, and this is something I'm still bad about sometimes, is like post-workout, like making sure I'm not stressed out before I eat a meal. Because otherwise it's just mode. Yeah. So yeah, getting in that parasympathetic, that rest and digest, like I was also fasting, like just because I wasn't hungry in the morning and it was quarantine and I was, stress was high. I was going almost to like 1 o'clock, even 3 o'clock at the worst without eating.
I remember you doing that quite a bit. Like,
and I was like, I'm fine. It's great.
Like, I don't know how, I know other people that do that too. And I'm like, man, if I went to the gym on an empty stomach, I mean, I could do cardio on an empty stomach just fine. Like that's cool. If I tried to lift anything, I'd do like 2 or 3 reps and I'd get lightheaded and probably faint.
Yeah.
But I can also eat like a whole large pizza and then go work out.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm kind of somewhere in between, I guess.
And it's one of those things where like you don't, like you think you're getting away with it. Yeah. And until you start doing the opposite and eating and you're like, oh, wow, I was missing out kind of thing.
So what is like a typical pre-workout meal look like for you now?
Right now, it's a lot of times I do the cream of rice that you always talk about with protein powder and some fruit is one of my go-tos.
See, and that's perfect, guys. It's really important to fuel your body. Like so many people we live in a society where we're like on the go, we're stressed a lot. I get stressed, trust me. I can completely get it. But if you're not fueling your body properly, things are going to happen. And listen, I know some of you guys might be listening to this and be like, well, Sarah had anorexia, so like this doesn't apply to me. No, it does still. It does, because if you're one of these women that are competing, and listen, guys too, I know it's not the same as far as like losing your cycle, but things happen hormonally when you are severely, low in body fat for a long time and everything. So like you see it a lot. I see it a lot. Women that do 3 or 4 shows every single year, and then they think their off season is like 3 months long, right? And that's not enough time.
And then
go ahead.
And then they don't treat themselves right in the off season either. Like they're drinking, or they're like not eating the cleanest food, or they're overtraining. So
overtraining a lot because they're afraid to lose their physique.
Yeah.
And they don't hone in and focus on the fact that you have to, if you want a different physique, you have to go through something different that you haven't done before, right?
Yeah.
And they're afraid of losing that 6-pack, losing those shreds and everything, and just feeling a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm sure for you, when you kind of made this switch, I'm sure it was pretty uncomfortable for you too at the beginning, right?
Oh yeah. And like we said, like I haven't dieted in almost 2 years, and I weigh more now than I ever have. And I know it's a mind F to see like the lines fade. And like I was saying to Mike the other day, like, I was like, I don't have a 6-pack anymore. He's like, yeah, you do. I'm like, okay, I have like the top 2, or maybe I have one like in the morning, like if I didn't drink any water, and it's hard because like I'm used to being, I was always a tiny person, even before the eating disorder, even, up until I really dedicated to building muscle these past 2 years, I've been tiny. And actually, even until I would say a year ago, I was still tiny,
Well, and you, listen, like you're a lean person in general. Like you're never going to be fat.
Okay? Right. That's just not my body.
It's not your body. It never will be. You don't have habits that allow you to be like that either. Your lifestyle is very geared towards this and everything. But I can tell you, just as a friend from looking from the outside, like your physique has gotten tremendously better while putting on weight. Yeah. And I think that's important for women to hear, is that putting on weight does not equal a worse physique. Okay. Yeah. Now, is everyone is lean and small as Sarah is, and then you put on weight and you're still lean and small? No, I get that. Okay. But you have to think about putting on a little bit of weight so you could put on a little bit more muscle, so that when you do cut back down again, you have a different physique to show for it. And for you, it's just been tremendous. And I firmly believe that, kind of knowing the timeline now as far as when you started doing this, and taking your health back into your own hands with seeking out I forget, what's her name again?
Victoria Felcar. And so I started doing that in April of last year, like working with her on these things. And then fast forward, I guess like 6 months ish to September is when I stopped taking the birth control pill.
So from when you ended your show in June of 19 up until before you started working with her, obviously you were post-show, you were doing it, but you weren't, I don't think you made as good a progress as you did from this point last year up until now. And
with that, you know what I think that is I was just too lean to make progress.
Right.
Like, and I think that's what a lot of people don't realize, is especially if you actually get stage lean, and I was like to the bone shredded. Like,
you brought the conditioning.
Look up, you can like on my Instagram, like if you go to my highlights, I think it's called like my gains highlights, you can see.
And I'll put all her information below, guys, so that you can see it.
I was like 9% body fat, like at like I tested it at in the lab at USF, but you know, I wasn't really even able to start truly building quality tissue until I recovered from that. And that's what I think a lot of competitors don't realize. And James's case study, you know, at USF, we looked at this at competitors post-show and looked at their hormone levels and looked at their metabolism. It takes, like, you have to put on body fat and you have to be eating enough to heal your hormones and then be able to start building muscle. So, right. So
and I think that's where people get off base, because people are afraid of body fat. And I get it to an extent. I mean, I get it, but I also don't get it. Like, body fat's necessary to stay alive. I think this is where too many people don't understand health has to be the cornerstone of everything else. Like I said, until you kind of start making these changes, and like I said, the last year or so, I mean, tremendous improvement. So it just shows that when you are healthy, your body will follow, right? So most people that aren't making changes, or they're kind of just teeter-tottering back and forth, they probably haven't taken enough time to get their health in order. And they're probably have never gone to get blood work, right? It's probably some of these women that just think, oh, it's cool not to get my cycle. Like, it's one less thing to worry about every month, right? But that was holding you back for so long. And it's just been great to see the steps you've been taking and how much better your training is, how much better your physique is. So let's talk about your training for a minute. Like, as you started to put on a little bit of body fat, right, post-show, well, since you started really working with her, and you got more knowledgeable and stuff, how has just allowing yourself mentally and physically to be okay with a little bit more body fat, how has that completely changed your training? Because I think this is very vital for women to hear, that a little bit more body fat is not a negative thing. This can help change your physique tremendously.
Yeah. So in August of last year, I started working with Mark Tominick, who does my nutrition and like my macros and then my training programming.
Yes, coaches have coaches, guys.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, include, like, I have several coaches, like I've, named 2 people, but so working with him and the 2-on, when I started with him, it was I think before that I was doing a 3-on 1-off push pull legs. Okay. But he reduced it to the 2-on 1-off, and just really like pushing to failure. Like, and that's not always okay for people trying to recover their cycles or hormone stuff. But for me right now, it is okay, you know, whatever. And it's working. So, you know, I take sets to failure, like actual, like today, like I like flip the barbell off my back for a back squat. Like I'm failing, you know?
Yeah.
So that intensity needs food to recover from. And one big change that I made since working with him is pre and post workout and intra workout, all the carbs. Like,
oh, you are doing an intra workout. Okay.
Yeah. So I do like 40 grams of carbs intra workout.
What do you use? Do you use like a cyclic dextrin or something?
Yeah, the cluster. Right now I'm using it's Granite supplements.
Oh yeah, yeah. John.
Okay. Yeah, it's John Meadows. I like it, the flavor. It's like $30. You know, good deal.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I do that intra workout, and like I think that too is a big part of the physique changes that I've been making is really, you know, putting those carbs around. You know, I'm eating like 340 grams of carbs, which for someone my size, it's a good bit, you know.
That's
so
a great bit.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I am starting to get to the point where I'm like, food, but like the intra workout like helps a lot to get that down.
So what have you noticed as far as, obviously much better training and everything, but have you noticed better recovery now with your peri-workout nutrition? And for you guys that don't know, peri-workout means pre, intra, and post. So
yeah, I would say like I still get sore, but not like on that level, and I recover quickly. I mean, I haven't felt like under recovered in a long time. And that's why, like, I think if you train that way with, you know, taking the more frequent rest days, you don't really have to take a deload, you know, and this is highly dependent. Like, I mean, I think maybe if I was really lifting a lot heavier, if I was a bigger dude or whatever, I might need more deloads, but that's kind of the approach. And my coach kind of takes is, you know, hey, we don't really like, there's something, you know, if we manage your recovery, like for him, and I kind of agree with this, is he's like, you know, if we need a deload, let's just take an extra 2 days off of training, you know, then
instead of a whole week.
Yeah.
Kind of more like auto-regulating.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, my recovery, my mood is better. Like I don't think you realize like how bitchy you are, or like short tempered or anxious. For me, like that was a big thing. And I think part of like putting on body fat and getting your hormones, you know, better is better mood and better just mentality as a whole.
Yeah. So we've talked about obviously why losing your cycle is bad, right? Yeah. What are before it gets to the point where it might be too late for somebody, right? Mm-hmm. Before shit hits the fan and, you know, you got to take some drastic measures to get it back. What are some things that women should be looking for in terms of maybe it's their mood, maybe it's things that are going on with their body, things like that? I mean, obviously the lack of a menstrual cycle is a big
right.
thing. But I'm sure there's probably some things leading up to that might be giving them the idea that this is possibly starting to happen.
Yeah. And this is also been a big thing for me too, in learning more about my own body, is I think a lot of women don't, and I never had a need to before, because I never had a period. So, yeah. But tracking your cycle, I mean, you know, actually like, you know, on your, like having a calendar or your phone or using an app to, you know, track, like, okay, like most women are pretty, like if you're healthy and regular, like you're going to be 28 to 34 days have your period. So tracking that and making sure, like, you know, and paying attention, you know, is it heavy? Is it light? Is it, you know, all that. And then, I mean, if you really want to get, and I have links to this in my Instagram, but the fertility awareness method it's a form of birth control. It's, I mean, I don't know, you and Amber talked about that, but it's basically monitoring.
I was going to bring that up. So I got really aware of this last year when we were trying to get pregnant, like the tracking, and that stuff. Yeah.
And most women, like, or not most women, I would say a lot of women use it to get pregnant, but you can also use it to not get pregnant, or use it to just be more in tune with your body, right? Tracking your temperatures, paying attention to those signs. And so, you know, there's different apps. Like I use the Kendara app, And again, keep in mind, I don't have a cycle. So my data is like, it's just all over the place, but it's still helpful to kind of see potentially any trends. So, back to what we were talking about, like if you can start tracking this, like any women out there listening, you can notice like, oh, I was late this month, right? Or, and that happens a lot of my clients, like their periods will be late when we're not the first month into a diet, but maybe if we're on a longer diet, 3 months, 4 months, that's when we start noticing things, right? Or maybe PMS is worse, libido, like all of that stuff are signs.
For stress, that could kind of delay it a little bit,
yeah,
or it could make it come on quicker.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so I think just paying attention to that, to your body in general, is something that women and people in general, I think, don't do, that aren't like bodybuilders, right?
Yeah.
Or even bodybuilders don't. Yeah.
So with your women clients, when it comes to training and their cycle at the time of their cycle, women handle it very differently, from person to person. Some women, like, they're just dragging. Some women, they get a little bit more energized, right? It just can go either way. How do you tend to see most women handle it? And do you adjust like their training at all or anything during that? Or,
So this is funny because I feel like there's a lot of this talk on social media right now. Or maybe it's just the people I follow, but like, it's called like cycle syncing. So like you like sync
I've heard about that,
like your life to your period. My opinion is that's way overkill. Like
most things are, yeah.
Like okay, I would be stressed the fuck out if I had to like change my nutrition every single week and and like, it's way overkill. So I think a lot of women read these things and they're like, oh my God, I have to do this because I'm more carb sensitive in my, follicular phase and my luteal phase. I have to, oh my God, like stress is the biggest.
Stress yourself out more trying to figure that out.
Yeah. So what's going on. That said, though, like I do have I have a couple of clients where like some of them are fine. Like others, we know that the week before their periods, like they just feel shitty. So I say, okay, that week we keep it to an RPE 7. Like that's like that's it.
Auto regulating we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, and again, getting more advanced, like I might, if we're in a dieting phase, I might purposefully put a diet break around that time, a post period or something like that. But it depends on the individual client. And that's where tracking and paying attention to, how you're feeling, because like you said, some women are fine. Some women, don't feel good when they're on their period, or some people feel great on their period and it doesn't bother them, so that's how.
When we ask for a lot of info and data, we're not just trying to be picky. Like, we're just definitely trying to narrow things down. Like Sarah said it best, like, you can't know trends. You don't know things unless you keep the data, right? So how did you feel training during your cycle? That's important to keep in mind too. What was your nutrition like? What was your sleep like? Because a lot of sleep disturbances happen during that time too. It's just crucial. So many women are either like gonna start birth control or come off of birth control during their life, right? I know a lot of women are afraid of like weight gain because of it. Some women think that some birth controls are gonna make you cause a little bit more weight gain. Some people are afraid to come off of it because they might gain some weight. What do you know about weight gain when it comes to birth control?
So it's really going to depend on the type. I would say from the research that I'm aware of, and different people that I've learned from, the really only ones you have to, I would say, to stay away from, and this is just because they're older, is going to be like the depot shot. So something like that is more likely to cause weight gain than either like the current generation birth control pill. And then this is where it's very individual dependent, like the IUD. Some women get just crazy inflamed, even from the non-hormonal, the copper IUD, their body just kind of rejects that and they get very inflamed. So I think just paying attention to your body, and really doing your research on one, why are you going on birth control? Like, is it to prevent pregnancy? Is it because your doctor told you this is going to regulate your period, or this is going to take away your cramps? Like, yeah, it's going to take away your period. So that's why it regulates it, right? It kind of turns it off. So like, and I am not here to tell a woman what to do, but I want all women to do their research and on both sides. Like, there's a lot of fear mongering around this. Like, there's one woman in particular, her name starts with a J. Anyone listening will know who I'm talking about. But it's like fear mongering around it. And it's like, for me,
for taking birth control?
Yeah, for taking birth control. And for me, it's, hey, what is going to be worse for your health? Getting pregnant when you're not ready to, or, you know, being on this birth control pill? You know, for me, like, I mean, again, I was 17 when I started taking it, and I wasn't actively in an eating disorder then, but kind of, and like, I didn't gain any weight, but, you know, I also got stage lean shredded. I also relapsed twice while I was on it. So, you know, does it prevent you from losing weight? I mean, maybe I'm the wrong person to ask, but
that's all good information. I think it's important for women to know that, you know, it's going to affect people different. There's no like one size fits all approach. Some better options than others, but I think you said it perfect. Do your research. Like, listen, I selfishly bring you guys and other guests on because I want to learn more about topics that I have no idea. I'm not a woman. I never will be a woman. I don't fully understand anything that's going on. However, I work with a lot of women and I want to know more. Like, I want to educate myself more. And everybody listening to this podcast should want that. Like, if you tuned into this episode, you saw the title of it, it's obviously interesting to you. Do your research. And I think that's a really important thing for Sarah to say, is that, like, she's not an expert. I'm not an expert. She has certain history and everything, and certain steps that she's taken to educate herself. And so we're trying to pass that on to you guys, because it's almost, and maybe I shouldn't use this word, it almost seems like a pandemic, almost like in the fitness industry, where women are like
losing their cycle.
Losing their cycle. And they just keep doing the same thing, not understanding the long-term effects, right? So what are some long-term effects, right, that can build up if you don't address this at an early age?
I mean, like, you know, like, it's all like a feedback loop, right? So, you know, things like your thyroid are going to take a hit. Your bone mineral density, like,
that's a good one. Yeah,
that's the scariest one to me. I mean, like, I was able to reverse my osteoporosis or osteopenia. I'm sorry. I was able to reverse it and I don't have it anymore. But like, because I stopped doing what I was doing soon enough, right? And got into training, got into eating enough. You know, so that's a big one. Or, I mean, just your fertility in general. And I know not every woman wants to get pregnant, but I mean, that's a real concern, is that you might be in this position where, you know, you lose your cycle, and you don't deal with it, and you just keep competing. And then you're 35 and you retire from bodybuilding and you just stop taking the birth control pill, or you just decide, oh, now I care.
Right.
Well, it might take, like, in my case, like, I'm anticipating it to be at least a full year to get my cycle back.
Yeah.
So if you're,
listen, I had my own issues. Like, we didn't think we were be able to get pregnant, you know,
right. At least
by a miracle we did, but like, it was a rough go. And I think you brought up a really good point there. Like, at some point, these women are going to retire, whatever. They're going to stop competing. And then your mindset, believe me, I'm 36 years old. My mindset is a lot different now than it was when I was 26. Okay. Yeah. Same thing's going to happen with women, right? You grow up, you mature, you want different things. You see life different. You for the majority of people, they are not going to be professionals, meaning they're not going to earn a living. Right.
Like, a pro card is different than being a professional.
100% different.
Yeah.
You have to be, how am I trying to say this? You have to look towards.
You have to be real. Yeah. Because, I mean, what's going to happen to a woman, especially, is you're going to keep down regulating your metabolism. You're going to keep running your body into the ground, and then you're ready to retire. And you were so scared of gaining a little bit of body fat, healthy body fat in your off season. And now your body is going to be pissed, and
exactly,
it might really rebel, and you might kind of quote unquote blow up and have no control over it because your thyroid is so down regulated. And now you can't lose weight, you know, and now you're going to have to stay here until your body is healed.
It's
right. And that's
like when people talk about not wanting to take rest days, one of my favorite things to tell them is like, listen, you either plan it yourself or your body is going to force you, and you're not going to like the way that it forces you to do it. Like, it's going to be ugly. And it's the same thing here. You have to remember, competing is a hobby. For just throwing out an arbitrary number here, probably 95% of people that are in bodybuilding, right?
Yeah.
Or physique competitions, I should say. The level that actually make a real living out of this is so minute. And that doesn't mean give up your dreams. That doesn't mean not do that. But you have to understand that there is a long life after competing. And you can look in the mirror and understand and be truthful with yourself that you might not be in that upper echelon that you're going to be able to make a living off of this.
Yeah.
You have to look out for your health first and foremost. And that doesn't mean don't compete.
No,
we know
competing. Take your off seasons and take them seriously, and think long term.
I mean, competing is it's fun, it's a hobby, but that's all it is, right? For the majority of people out there. If you don't have your health, you're going to maybe look at this 10-year span or whatever. I don't know. Maybe some people compete longer. You know, if you're healthy, God willing, that's great. But majority of people probably in about a 10-year span, right? So you're going to go hard for those 10 years, not focus on your health. Then you might have another 50 after that your health is just on the decline because you didn't take advantage of what you needed to do at this time. And it was all because you wanted to do 4, 5, 6 shows every single year and not give your body the rest it needs. So I think this was a great conversation. Obviously, we've said it before, we're not professionals. We don't know everything about this as far as how to get your cycle back. Sarah's gone.
It's very individual specific. You know, like I was saying, like you have to look at your own health timeline, your own lab work, and really just nailing the foundations of health, you know, your stress, eating enough, not overtraining, but training, you know, finding that balance, drinking your water, having, you know, regular blood sugar, gut health, like all of those foundations are part of what it takes, but how in depth is going to be dependent on you and what you need to focus on.
Right. I mean, just you guys look out for your health. We've both been in a place in our lives where health was on a major decline. It's taken us a long time to overcome. And I think it's really important for people to hear you say this, because you're still not to where you need to be at, right? Like, but you're taking the steps right now. And if a woman is listening to this and they may be in your same position and they're like, oh, I've been trying for like 3 or 4 months to get it back and it won't come back, and they're getting frustrated, understand Sarah's been going for a long time and she's making the steps, and all of a sudden one day it's going to come back, but you have to be willing to give it time and be patient and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, guys, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, I hope you got something from this episode. I learned a lot, that I didn't even know.
Tell Amber, report back.
Yeah, exactly. Sarah, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? And of course, I'll put it all in the description box below, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on podcast.
Yeah, so mainly on Instagram at Sarah Ford Bishop. And then I have Unfiltered Fitness Radio. I think David was episode 3. So I think you were my first guest, but it was like episode 3. So that's on iTunes or Spotify. And then emails sarahbishopfitness@gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Sarah, you go have a good rest of your day. I'm sure you got a lot to do today. So I will see you very soon. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, David.
All right. And guys, if you can subscribe, share, do all that good stuff, that helps me a lot. So I appreciate it. And I'll be back with another episode soon.